Hello, podcast enthusiasts, and welcome to the first episode of the Trio Pop Podcast, starring your three hosts. My name is Nick.
My name's Amanda.
My name is Brennan.
And every week we'll have 5 topics in an episode discussing the latest movies, video games, wrestling, and other topics in pop culture. As for our first topic, we wanted to discuss the 5 movies we've individually seen that we really enjoyed. So if Brandon wants to start it off for us.
Sure. So we've seen a bunch of movies this year. I just have my top 5 in no order. I loved Spider-Man. I thought it was better than Avengers Endgame, but that is also right behind Spider-Man. Then we have Shazam. I thought Shazam was a really fun DC superhero movie. After having like Batman vs. Superman and a couple other movies that just weren't necessarily good, that movie felt like it was a really cool blend of like Tom Hanks is big and just a random like Superman movie. Also, there's Toy Story 4 as a fourth movie and in like a with a concluded trilogy. I thought it was a perfect fourth movie. You really can't pick up the pieces and then just run with it as well as that movie did. From what I thought. And then I just thought Detective Pikachu was really good. It's like a movie where I love Blade Runner, so getting something that looked like that and also always wanting to live in the Pokemon world, it was really cool to see that.
Mm-hmm. Amanda?
So my top 5 movies were Us, Fighting with My Family, Toy Story 4, Hobbs and Shaw, and Missing Link. I really liked Us because it was a thriller over a horror movie and it really made you think, and a lot of people I felt didn't understand the movie and they had to see it twice. I went in knowing I had to pay attention a little bit more, so I felt like I walked out kind of understanding everything, and I thought that they put a lot of details and work into their storyline. Fighting with My Family, obviously a really great wrestling movie. It showed Paige's life, and it was pretty accurate to what had happened, which with a lot of biography movies, they don't always follow. Toy Story 4 was obviously one of the best ones this year so far, just because it was, from your childhood, they reinvented it.
Mm-hmm.
Hobbs and Shaw we just saw, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, was really well created and really good. And I really liked Missing Link because I love when they do the claymation movies. I think that they put a lot of effort into it, and it usually pays off.
And the Leica movies always have a very unique style, which I like too.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. As for my top 5 movies in no order, Dragon Ball Super, I'll definitely say that was the top movie for me so far this year. Mm-hmm. As an avid Dragon Ball fan, totally just amazing movie. Mm-hmm. Fan service here and there.
Good soundtrack too.
Absolutely. It's hilarious as well. So good. Toy Story 4, have to give props to that movie. Definitely one of the best of the entire series. Mm-hmm. Definitely kept my attention throughout the entire showing. Avengers Endgame, not a huge superhero fan. Like, we go to see the movies, every week. And, we kept up with a couple of the Marvel movies like Thor Ragnarok and even the Thors and Iron Man, Captain America, movies the past couple years. But, after seeing Infinity War and then Endgame, just, that movie definitely blew away any expectations I had, coming out of it. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, although not the best in the whole Godzilla series, it was the one made in America. It wasn't Toho exclusive. At least I don't believe so.
No, it wasn't a classic. It was like its own. It was basically American-made Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. So for what it was worth, it was better than Zilla at least.
Yeah. The 99.
Yeah,
Godzilla
that was.
Movie
I think that was
with
99.
Matthew Broderick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't even see the first or the other Godzilla, the one before King of the Monsters.
2014.
But yeah,
that's trash.
Yeah, apparently not too much Godzilla in a Godzilla movie.
He's only in 8 minutes of a 2.5-hour runtime.
Right at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, and not too much better with this one, but definitely some of the fight scenes that you could follow were pretty sweet.
Well, it was definitely a step in the right direction.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. And then Hobbs and Shaw, really fun movie. Didn't expect it to be fun. I'm coming in from, not seeing any Fast and Furious movies. It definitely was a really, really fun time.
So it seems like with all of our movies, one movie comes across all of our boards, and that's Toy Story 4.
Absolutely.
Just in terms of Toy Story 1 to Toy Story 4, what do you think, where does this sit amongst the other three movies? Do you think Toy Story 1's still the best? For me personally, like I love the first movie. It's the movie I grew up with. 2 I thought was pretty good. 3 for what it was, I thought it was a beautiful ending. So going into 4, I was really skeptical, but I've been really wanting to rewatch 4 because I think it was so well done and unexpected, and I had really low expectations. So I want to know your opinions as well.
Well, obviously, I don't think that you could beat Toy Story 1 because it's the original, and you wouldn't have the foundation of everything else if you didn't have the first movie. If anyone hasn't seen Toy Story 4, this isn't going to make any sense, but I think we could all relate because we are all trash.
Yeah, I guess.
Which is a Porky's line there. I am trash.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it had the best comedy out of any Toy Story movie. I think the 1 has the best charm. Like even 2 had a good story. I feel like 3,
they just did to pull at your heartstrings, basically.
Yeah,
I think 4 they dragged in a lot of like horror sequences, which as a horror lover, I definitely I appreciated with the
slappy dummies.
Yeah,
or whatever.
the dolls, the ventriloquist dummies. I think that was something that was actually a little more scary for younger kids, which, I mean, even for people who have that fear, were a little freaked out because they were all throughout the movie. I like that it took place in a different, scene as you normally would have, and I felt like they followed the storyline so well. And they just kind of brought it all together again, full circle, which is what they normally do. And it's just, another adventure in them showing people growing up and moving on and following the paths that, they need to do for themselves.
And they also left it open for potential sequels. Me personally, I wish and I kind of hope that this is it and we just get that closure for everybody.
Yeah, the only thing I'll accept is like the Christmas short stories. I think that they could do really well with those over the years. They could keep making small things. I don't think they need to do a full movie again. I think they need to stop like beating the dead horse at this point and let people appreciate what was made instead of keep trying to reinvent the characters, reconfigure, the CGI and all of that stuff.
Before they ruin it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of liked how this one was different than I think even the first one, but more 2 and 3, where it wasn't a twist villain, but it was more like a twist
plotline,
like a twist person you could like sympathize with. Like I ended up, instead of being like the nice person turning it all of a sudden into a bad person, it turns out that the bad person kind of had a good side to them all along.
Yeah, I really like the setting of this movie too. The carnival I thought worked really well, especially between like Woody's whole story. The biggest gripe I think with this movie is you don't get a lot of Woody and Buzz.
Yeah, that's really true. And from like what I saw, Buzz wasn't like too into the movie. I guess like there was kind of all his parts where he was talking to his inner voice and everything.
I just feel like we've all seen it before. You gotta save one or the other, and then you gotta make sure they're okay. It's like it's the same storyline with different characters every time.
Yeah.
And before we move on to other topics, I do want to say for the future of the show and this episode, we are gonna try and remain very, what's the word? We're gonna try and stay very little on spoilers. We don't want to ruin the experience for anybody that is listening to this. So when we do talk about like Hobbs and Shaw and a couple other topics, you are in good hands. So you will not need to worry about that. So do we want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, sure.
So our next topic is about the WWE 2K20 cover. It's for the new WWE wrestling game. The reveal was with Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns on the cover. They released a SmackDown Collector's Edition, announced WWE 2K20, which includes memorabilia like pieces of the 2000s SmackDown ring, a Superstar card, and some other cool things that you can get. The main showcase of this game will be following the 4 horsewomen, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair. The only reason we're laughing at this is because we've taken this take about 40 times, and Brennan accidentally had said the 4 horsewomen, and we couldn't get over it, so it's the 4 horsewomen, Becky
people.
Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, and Sasha Banks.
Where's Sasha Banks?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they're gonna, bring her into it when she's kind of been irrelevant since she lost the tag team women's titles, but maybe this is her chance to be reborn a little bit into the company because she's definitely gone south for
it was at WrestleMania, right? most recent one where she
Yeah.
lost, and then
That was
she kind of
that was it, I think, and I think she had like 1 or 2 TV runs.
Yeah, and the rumor is that she had a huge temper tantrum for losing the titles, and that's why they cut her off. They've still been showing her Cricket Wireless commercials, so you know she's still a part of the brand, and they have released her from her then and now photos.
And there's also been a huge rumor that she may potentially join the new AEW promotion, which I think would be really cool.
I think it would be a good way for her to reinvent herself, since kind of WWE's riding her through the mud, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Exactly.
give her a new look and style. Maybe kind of stay away from the whole
Legit boss.
Legit boss.
It's definitely not a timeless.
No, it's
gimmick.
not.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's gonna. It is outdated at this point. No one calls himself a legit boss. No one really uses the word legit anymore.
Why is she a boss, and why is she so legit?
Yeah,
like she could definitely reinvent herself as a more a protagonist that's taken more seriously, or maybe even an antagonist. Who knows?
But in all seriousness, what do you think about the cover? I don't know if you've actually seen the cover, but it's.
I did see it, and Becky's in front of Roman in the cover, which I think is a big step for WWE. I mean, with their whole women's revolution, they're trying to show her more, even though they do call her the man, which is a little contradicting.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that she's getting her opportunity, and I mean Roman Reigns is such a big character that, of course you would see him on the cover, especially with his leukemia and everything that he went through this year, and battling that. I think it's really important, for him to showcase his strength. Definitely. But I think with Becky on there, she's definitely accomplished a lot, and I think that, it's a good run for her, but I am getting tired of her.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be it for her for a little while. This was like her big jump, and I think they're definitely going to have to cut it back, because it's just kind of repetitive at this point.
I think the climax of her career is when she beat Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. It kind of,
Well, that was the biggest thing, because Ronda was undefeated, just like she was in UFC. And unfortunately for Ronda, she keeps getting a reputation as every time she gets, beat, she retires. So she's definitely not as strong and powerful as they're trying to make her. The baddest woman on the planet is what they would say, and she's really far from that.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because going into the 2K20 cover, it was pretty much assumed that it was going to be Becky from the get-go, especially because when you think about all the superstars, male or female, who had the best and biggest pop or anything like
impact.
That, impact, it was Becky, regardless if you're a fan or not. But to also see Roman on there, I think is actually really cool, and I'm not really a big fan of him personally. I think he's a cool guy. I just don't care about his wrestling character. I think it's cool that they're both on the cover, because not only does it defy my expectations of what I thought the cover was going to be, but they're kind of still showing that, hey, while Becky Lynch is the prime star in WWE, regardless of sex or whatever, we still got Roman Reigns. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Roman Reigns. But I think it's cool that you actually have a dual gender cover. I think that's really cool.
I think it's also a good representation of Raw and SmackDown, considering the fact that she was the face of SmackDown for a very long time. Yep. So even though she is on Raw now due to the draft, I think that, and he's on SmackDown now, which is funny, but I think where he was, but now he's back on Raw. But I think it's a good showing of both of the channels and the stations that they're trying to, produce. And now that SmackDown was just obviously purchased by Fox, and they're going to be showing, their whole spin on SmackDown and making it a little bit more rough and
I think they want to return it to its, not return it to its former glory, but they definitely want it to be the A show, where what that means is they want SmackDown to be the best WWE product possible. And for somebody like me, where I grew up loving Raw in 2005, and from there on, I do remember watching SmackDown when I was really young.
Well, Friday Night SmackDown was the thing to do, that was...
you had The Rock, you had Eddie Guerrero, you had Batista, it was so cool, and to have that coming back. And also my friend told me today that Fox may have the Fist coming through the set.
That would be cool.
That's awesome.
That would be sweet to come back.
So, and it's a shame, because when I heard about the SmackDown Collector's Edition, I was very intrigued But to only hear that it's basically a SmackDown ring felt patch or something that you can usually find in like a Topps trading card and a Superstar card, which I think I heard it's Rey Mysterio. Makes sense because he was a big SmackDown guy, but still,
that's true.
It's kind of lame. I wish there was at least
for all the money they're charging you to get it. It's not really worth it unless you're like an avid fan and you collect every single thing.
Yeah.
And how do you really know? Like, I know that they market it as a 2000 SmackDown ring, but how do you know when it's really from? What's to say that they're not just producing whatever they want and selling it? I never believe that stuff because
even if it has a ticket of authenticity,
I don't believe it because like where they saved all these rings for all these years and produced mouse cards. Like I don't know, I don't know if I can follow it 100%. I mean, I believe them that 2000s could be 2018. It's still in the 2000s, you know. They want you to just have that piece of like memorabilia from your childhood, which is what they try and pull with all of the 90s kids and other generations.
Sorry.
I was gonna say I do think it would have been kind of cool for something like this for them to have done like a statue or something of a superstar or something.
Like I would pay a lot of money to have a classic like shut your mouth rock pose where he's just doing the like come at me with the glasses on. I would pay $120 to get that. They also announced that there is a deluxe edition, but what I'm not crazy about and for some reason 2K Games still does it is you're getting Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Mankind, and I believe a few other more exclusive DLC characters. They're already usually in the main game, so I don't know what this is. I don't know if they're an early unlock or what, but that's kind of weird.
It's just what games are doing nowadays. If in the sequels they take out things that were initially in the other games and charge you for them in the next one. It's just what the gaming industry is doing. It is just a cash grab. You know. It's a waste of money, really.
Now, with all this being said, SummerSlam is this upcoming Sunday. I feel like it's definitely creeped up faster than we had expected it to, but I'm also not as excited because I feel like the storylines of Raw and SmackDown have fallen off quite a bit. And I don't know about you guys, but, I'm not itching to see it. I'm not, this is supposed to be the summer's WrestleMania. It's supposed to be the biggest thing of the summer. Brock Lesnar has the belt again, so it is a little exciting because he really is a wild card and you never know what he's going to do.
Exactly.
And, he doesn't really ever conform to what they want him to do. So he's always going to, make someone bloody or break a limb or do something crazy, which is what brings in money. So they're smart for making him the champion again. But, I mean, they said that Becky's going to try and go back to get 2 belts, and we're kind of over that. Like, Becky 2 belts was a thing. It was a good t-shirt sale, but I think her time's coming to an end just as much as, Charlotte Flair's great, and I love her, but she's going to be wrestling Trish Stratus, and I'm kind of over that.
I really had no idea about that. That's interesting.
That's what they said last week when I was watching. She challenged her and she accepted it, and I mean it's exciting, but I don't think it's going to be the best match ever. I think they're both equally matched when it comes to their strength, but you're really just getting modern day Trish Stratus versus the original.
Well, I think you guys can also agree that there is one match that I think we all are really excited to watch, and that is the Fiend versus the Demon. Bray Wyatt, the new Bray Wyatt. Versus,
that is one of the only things I'm excited for.
I'm just hoping that it isn't like a 2-second match where they show off that the Fiend is really overpowered and somehow beats the Demon. Like I kind of want it to be a good match. If the Fiend wins, that'd be like amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, I'm happy that they're creating his whole persona to be a lot better.
Finally.
Yeah, because his whole lantern and fireflies thing.
The Sister Abigail thing was cool.
Yeah, and he still has the move. It's just reinvented now. Yeah. And I think, it's easier for him because it's not so much in the facial expressions, it's in the mask. And the mask kind of plays off. It's consistent, where he doesn't have to be because it's his costume that's consistent.
Yeah, it's his creativity, poured into it. So.
And also the storylines are like right on the table too. You can, from what I've told these guys off camera and stuff, it's like we have the perfect story right in front of us where the Demon really is undefeated on every pay-per-view. He comes in and he kicks somebody's ass, and that's it. And he goes away. And then whenever somebody else challenges him, he usually ends up winning. So
and I'm just hoping, not to cut you off, I'm just hoping that it's going to be more than a 5-minute match. Because sometimes when they bring in these big characters, they're like, all right, end it quick, because they think people don't want it, because Vince thinks that everyone wants to see the big, tall, strong man. They don't want to see, the uniqueness of other characters.
Was it it was WrestleMania when Bobby Lashley came out with the really cool eye contacts.
Yeah.
And that was like the demon versus the hunter kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But it was so fast, wasn't
It always is.
I mean, there's some situations, like especially like back at WrestleMania when like Samoa Joe fought Rey Mysterio and he beat him in like literally 5 seconds. I guess it was a good way to show his like strength over him, but then it just kind of makes for a match that could have been really, really entertaining. Just all of a sudden, just be gone already, be done.
It was also really disappointing too because Rey Mysterio came out with Mysterio like ring gear from Spider-Man. I was like, that is the coolest thing ever, and the guy lost like right away.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
So like with SummerSlam on Sunday, that's exciting. But on August 30th is the first like real big pay-per-view for AEW, and it's AEW's All Out. So a year ago, almost to the date, I believe, was All In, and that was when Cody and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and all them were going ahead, and they were in New Japan, and they were like, hey, we're going to create this indie show, and it sold out in minutes. I remember watching it that night, and I was blown away. Like, I only knew Cody and the Young Bucks and, like I said, Kenny and a couple others, but seeing this just fresh new faces, it was the coolest thing ever. And then when a couple months back they announced AEW, I was totally on board.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I've just been starting to get into AEW, or just been starting to watch some of the pay-per-views and stuff like that. But like the amount of like freshness and creative control they have with AEW as opposed to WWE is astounding.
Well, see, the difference is like AEW was basically the original WWE. That's what WWE used to be, and then they went, to the PG era. Now they're trying to bring them back into violence because now they have a competitor. I mean, they're accomplishing some things. They are pulling people in and trying their best, but once you get the reputation for what you are, you have to either stick with it or you have to really full swing into something else and be consistent. And now that WWE has a real competitor like AEW coming into the game with such a large following, I think they're a little bit scared. So they're trying to, amp up their whole persona of, we can be tough too. We can, punch people in the face and break their skulls open and, do all that stuff. Yeah, but I think that AEW has a strong chance of, outshining WWE right now because it's in its prime, because it's just starting up. So no matter what they do, people aren't going to know if it's a mistake. People aren't going to know if it wasn't meant to be, because nobody knows what they're really going for yet.
Exactly. I personally think that they just happen to be at the right place at the right time where WWE was still in the PG era. They were still kind of losing people, rapidly. And then AEW comes in and everyone's like, oh, going back to the old wrestling and everything. And that's when, Vince and the team are like scrambling, like, all right, how can we make this,
And they tried to buy out AEW before it became, a big thing, and they didn't accept it. But
yeah, it's just scrambling around trying to make it, like the old WWE, and it's just not going to work right now.
Well, sorry. Well, it's like AEW is almost like a miracle, because for me, when I got back into wrestling with you guys, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago now.
At least 2.5.
2.5 years ago, and we were watching it literally at the lowest it's ever been.
And then it peaked a little, and then it's just been trashed since. And now that Paul Heyman and whoever, what's his other name, who is in charge
Corbin,
now?
Or Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, trying to bring it back up.
And that's cool, but I feel like, and even I was talking to my friend the other day, I feel like they only get one skit a night.
Yeah.
So instead of like in the past when you'd watch a story with The Rock and the Hurricane, then you would finish that and you would go see somebody else have a story, and it would all connect every week. It almost feels like when you're watching Raw and SmackDown that they have one big story and then everybody else is, hey, you're going to get a title shot tonight. That's it. And then they'll win or lose. And then next week it's like, oh, we're going to bring out Apollo Crews versus one of the Revival guys just because.
And then insert a 24/7 skit here, which personally I do ironically think is like the best skit.
I think it's okay. I don't like what they're doing right now with Maria being the pregnant, champion. No one can defeat her. The way she treats her husband, I don't think that's right. And a lot of people online also agree in the fact that, like, you don't want to belittle a woman because it's inappropriate, but a woman can belittle a man, and that's not okay either. And the fact that they're married, like, she's walking all over him, and, like, they might think it's funny, but people are starting to get fed up, and everyone online is like, this isn't cool anymore. It's actually making us uncomfortable to see a woman bully her husband, like if it was to say he's not a man or something just because that's the skit. Like, it's not cool, and it actually makes her look worse. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make her look good, and you don't even have sympathy for the husband because you're like, this is so fake and so outlandish that it's not something you could even go along with. It's so scripted.
I love the Maverick stuff, though. I actually thought I didn't care about him when he was with, Authors of Pain, but I think his 24/7 stuff is actually funny.
Yeah, he's funny.
It gives him a personality, always, instead of just someone who's peeing his pants.
Yeah, with the Big Show.
Well, we really got sidetracked talking about some good old wrestling.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we can move on.
This is what you're going to expect here on the show. We talk about a lot of stuff that we love. Mm-hmm. So let's continue that with the main topic of tonight, and that is Hobbs and Shaw. So this is the latest entry in the Fast and Furious series. Mm-hmm. This is the 9th movie in the entire saga. This is the first spin-off for Fast and Furious. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite things about this movie, and are you down for a sequel?
The Rock.
I'm definitely down for a sequel. I think they left it off so that way it could definitely have a sequel. Some of my favorite things about this movie, like, we don't want to give away spoilers, but they do, double pan the movie where you can see both lives, how they're relatable, in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think just, bringing in 2 different cultures, one's London, very modern, one's Samoa and California, tribal. I believe, very, natural, and bringing in the natural way of fighting,
the mana, as you would say,
against weapons, I think is such a cool thing, because you see people using their bodies, which is what people really do, in these cultures, right? And then you have the smaller man using his guns, but it works for him, and he's just as threatening as the Rock, who's like 2 times the size,
and can pull a helicopter with a chain.
Yeah. And as I was saying, this is 18 years, later that this franchise is still going. I was talking about it earlier before we started the podcast. It's kind of crazy for a movie to be going on 20 years and still have such a strong following and still stick to their roots and not fall off. You can watch any movie and still be entertained and still enjoy it.
It's crazy to me. To me, Fast and Furious is that movie I remember renting at Blockbuster, and I remember watching it very vividly, and I remember I was just encapsulated by it. I thought it was so cool. I thought Vin Diesel and then Paul Walker and just the whole street racing thing. It was probably the time was just perfect. I remember playing a lot of Need for Speed games and Burnout back in the day. So that came out at the perfect time. And then there was, of course, the whole bunch of sequels, and where I really think the series kind of just shined so much was Fast 5, because it turns into a action over the top Hollywood blockbuster instead of these street racing, we're going to steal this guy's money, get a pink slip for this car, etc.
Like gang racing.
Yeah, and then you add The Rock, and you add we're going to steal a bank and all this other stuff.
Rob a bank.
I just saw
steal the whole bank.
Exactly. But it's we just saw Furious 7. I didn't see Furious 7 or the Fate of the 8 or whatever they're going, whatever it is.
Fate of the Furious.
Yeah, Fate of the Furious. And Furious 7, I was cool, but there was a line that Vin Diesel said, and I was laughing because Nick was watching it, and they were talking about Shaw or something, and he's just what are you going to do to him? And he's words haven't even been invented yet.
Yeah,
that's lame. Really how much is the movie budget and you can't find someone to write a better script?
Yeah, but Hobbs and Shaw had a couple surprising cameos in there that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But you'll have to see the movie for
you don't
yourself.
I don't want to spoil
that. They are some pretty decent cameos.
And my biggest thing too was I've seen, I think, probably all the trailers, just not on purpose. Just we were watching a movie, it would play before the other one, so I expected a lot of these funny or cool scenes were just going to be in the trailer, and we saw all the good stuff.
Yeah, I thought you weren't going to laugh or you weren't going to be a part of anything like in the trailer when they're both in the rooms and, The Rock's on one side or Hobbs and then Shaw's on the other. And, that in the theater was actually still funny. Even though you knew what was going to happen, it was still something that, you enjoyed. I feel like that's how this movie was. There wasn't a part of the movie where you're sitting there and you're like, okay, is it over yet? Is it over yet?
Yeah.
You never check the clock. You're just like, okay, I can keep going with this. Other than the fact that we had the worst group of people in the movie theater ever.
Yeah.
17 people with small children is never a good sign when you have an action-packed movie that's very loud. So remember that if you go to the movies with anyone. Don't be disrespectful, because every time I go to the movies, someone's always annoying, loud. Yeah. I can't stand it.
And then, in the beginning of the movie, they say to turn off your smartphones, but then you have the small child beside you on the smartphone.
Literally very watching someone stream or playing some sort of game, like shooting people with the sound all the way up. It's just not good.
But something on this movie that I thought was really clever, and I even mentioned it to both of you after we were done, they got away with using the F word twice in a very unique way. Because usually PG-13 movies, they get one F word. So in this movie, they used it very well, and you technically get it twice. So I thought that was very fun. It's in the beginning, so you'll notice. But it was such a good time, and unfortunately, I didn't get to see John Wick 3 this year yet. So I'm waiting for that to come out digital. But man, this is easily one of my favorite action movies of the year.
And I think what's great about this movie is that you don't have to watch all the Fast and Furious movies to understand this movie. Exactly. I have not followed. I've seen the Fast and Furious. I couldn't tell you anything other than the fact that Vin Diesel was in it, Paul Walker was in it, and unfortunately he passed away. And that The Rock and Ronda Rousey made an appearance at least one time. Like, that's all I can tell you. Yeah. But watching this movie, you don't have to know the backstory because they created their own story for this. And you didn't need to really know their past to, be engulfed in the whole storyline.
What's awesome, too, like I was saying with Fast 5, it's like, it's the perfect starting point. It introduces Hobbs. It introduces, like, the more fun style of Fast and Furious, and I think it still has one of the most fun endings of a movie too. So it's even a movie where if you guys just have some spare time, I totally recommend watching it. Fast 5 is so good. I watched it the other night, and I was having so much fun, just like when I remember seeing it in theaters all those years ago.
Yeah.
So
we also came to Hobbs and Shaw for the Roman Reigns.
Oh, yes, the Roman Reigns cameo.
Yeah.
I wish he talked more.
Yeah, he didn't speak at all. Spoiler alert: he does not open his mouth other than a hoo-ha. So
if you were seeing the movie for that, I'm sorry, but
But it didn't feel forced either. Like, you see him and you're just like, oh, okay. He
blended well.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, he's a wrestler too. They have some like unspoken bond. Like, he was just there.
Yeah.
He was there a little too much in every single scene. Didn't make sense, but he definitely got, his payment for that being in every cutaway scene.
His check and walked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool to see. It's a movie that I wasn't really excited for right away, but as we got closer to it, and especially on Saturday when we saw it, I couldn't wait to just sit down and watch this movie.
I wasn't even excited to sit down and watch this movie. I had my phone out during the previews, and then it started, and it did, pull me in right away. It was something where I was like, maybe I will enjoy this, and I definitely did.
It's just like The Rock is so charming in general, but then you also have Jason Statham, which is somebody I never really cared for, and even watching him in Furious 7, you're like, man, he's just so dry. But in Hobbs and Shaw, they have this
personality.
Just awesome banter back and forth, and it was so much fun to just see how they're gonna outdo each other.
Yeah, and as I was, speaking about previews, this kind of segue into our next topic. I mean, as long as you guys are done with everything you said. We're going to be talking about our most anticipated movies for the rest of this year. Obviously the rest of 2019. I mean, my personal, anticipated movie is It Chapter 2. I loved It Chapter 1. I love any horror movies. And I think that It Chapter 1 was so fantastic, and I'm obsessed with it, and I have every single basically collectible item from that movie that I think It Chapter 2 looks just, even more twisted and dark and sinister, which is something that you didn't get from the original It movie. You had more of that silly clown, be afraid, but don't really be too scared. He's just, it's not something that would give you nightmares, where I feel like you would leave this movie and think wow, this is something scary, something that someone dreamed up that can actually be pretty horrifying for anybody, adults, children, especially clowns in general. People have such a horror, take on them.
Yeah.
Well, with that movie, I don't boost your expectations that much because I remember the original the 2016 one. It did the same thing. I think we all had this conversation too, where we're like, "Wow, this is going to be horrifying," and it really wasn't. But they did state that Chapter 2 is going to be a lot more visceral and horror focused than the first one was. But even the first one tried doing it, but I think they played into like what you're saying, the kid side of like Pennywise.
I think the first one was pretty horrifying. The fact that, this is from a book. Mm-hmm. So this is not someone that was actually, dreamt up in a movie that they recreated. Mm-hmm. They did create him in the first movie. The first original It, which was the television series, which was like 4 hours long.
Yeah.
And that was, frightening for its time. Mm-hmm. But I feel like what we have now is someone dreamed this up and like hell. Like this is like the clown from hell. Like it's not horrifying where you watch it and you can't you don't want to look away. Yeah. It's not something that's going to scare you that much, but it's more of the fact that like you can feel the children's fear in the movie, and that's what is more. It makes the movie more of a thriller than a horror, which I think is sometimes more scary than being in an actual horror film, because it's not all about jump scares, it's about the psychological and the scare aspects of it.
That's what I liked about it so much, is it wasn't just all jump scares. It was actually horrifying in some sense,
and I think, like, even in the sense of saying that it's scary when you see the previews, where James McAvoy is playing Billy. And he's the adult, and he's in the mirror room, and you see the little kid, and he's like, get out, and you just see It, like, with his tongue up against the wall, like, salivating. Pennywise. I'm sorry. Pennywise. But you see him, salivating because he wants to eat the child. Like, that's horrifying, like if you think about it.
It's cool that they're showing that stuff. To me, personally, I don't think a tongue scares me.
It's more of the concept of, like, he's ready to eat this person. It's not that the tongue's sticking out there. You're like, oh my god, it's his tongue.
I still think the first trailer for this movie did it very well, where it sets up a scene, and that scene is the whole feel of the rest of the trailer. And I really like the Pennywise underneath the bleachers, and he has the hello, and is like he's holding, what was it, the Destiny Stars or something like that.
Something,
And I thought it was really cool, really neat. Pennywise is he's creepy in his own way. Like there was some stuff in the first movie that I found unsettling, and a lot of people also forget that. Yeah, in It, a lot of people are like, oh, it was funny. We actually saw, like, child dismemberment with not only Georgie, but we saw, like, a severed body of the girl in the panic rooms or whatever. And, it was pretty intense.
It was when you look back at it.
Yeah.
What other movies
are you excited to see, Brandon?
Yeah.
There's quite a few. I mean, there's probably more than what we wrote down here. Star Wars is the only one I really have to say I am excited for, even though I'm really not. I think the last Star Wars really kind of ruined. Honestly,
you liked the last one though, didn't you?
No,
didn't you see that one?
Solo was good.
Yeah,
but I did not like Episode 8. And
is that the one we went to see?
That was the one.
That was horrifying. That was scarier than It alone. And the milk monster.
But like the problem with Episode 8, and I'm not gonna say it because I feel like I could just make my own video on that or something. It ruined what I look for in Star Wars, and I'm hoping that Episode 9 gives me that.
They went too far out of the box for Star Wars. Yeah. Like, that was the problem. Like, they tried too hard.
I would rather them just play it safe than try and do their own thing, and it just didn't work.
No, of course. I mean, I don't think I've seen Star Wars since Force Awakens. And that wasn't bad, but it was just kind of a side-by-side of New Hope.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
I was kind of like, it was a good movie, and then I just didn't bother seeing Solo or the other one.
Well, did you see Rogue One?
I did see Rogue One, and that was pretty forgettable.
I liked Rogue One, but yeah.
I think you have to be like a diehard fan, honestly, to really enjoy it.
That's the whole
like,
reason I'm subscribed to Disney Plus.
But when they brought back Princess Leia after she had passed away, Carrie Fisher, like it's like, how many times are you going to create a CGI version of a person who is alive? Like, why can't you just honor her
Well,
and move on.
she was alive the whole filming of that
Right.
movie, but now they kept her alive.
That's what
and
I'm
that's a huge
saying. Like,
issue.
that's like,
Yeah.
okay, move on.
So now they're using reused assets from
Yeah.
Force Awakens that never made into the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Star Wars Episode 9. I hope they conclude the series. I want to cry during it. I really do, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to happen.
Cry from being disappointed.
Yeah, I want to cry from being amazing,
I
but it's
know.
not going to happen.
Another big one is obviously Cats.
I'm really excited to see how bad that movie is going to look.
That is actually, people are making more jokes that it's more horrifying than it Chapter 2 will be, just by the
Yeah.
faces of the actual cats.
I'm excited how unsettling that movie
I
is
don't
gonna
even
be.
think that the music is going to be bad. I think it's just the rest of it
Yeah,
is going to be
exactly.
ridiculous.
I think the music's going to be beautiful. Just
Yeah.
based on the trailer, I was like, it's,
and I mean,
it's good music.
it's such a popular Broadway play, like
Mhm.
such a large show.
Wasn't it the longest running?
Something like that. I don't know.
Aside from like Lion King,
Yeah.
but yeah.
It had a very long runtime on Broadway, and it had a huge following, and it's going to make a lot of money because all the people who, first of all, have never seen it, they're going to want to say, what is this?
Yeah.
And then all the people that have seen it, they're diehard fans. You could literally give them puppet cats, and they're going to love it because it's something that they're, looking forward to.
Yeah, something they might have been in, like a school play or even,
Mhm.
people on Broadway.
Yeah.
I think this movie was trying to be a spectacle, and it took everything else kind of by the wayside. I still firmly believe, hey, you like cats? Awesome. Just have the cool like Broadway suits where it's kind of like leg warmers
Yeah.
and like cat suits. That would have been fine. I don't like this like real life fur and like
Yeah.
the weird CGI
CGI.
face.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? They're making live actions of everything else. Why couldn't they have made a live action of them using costumes? Why did it have to be all
I
Yeah.
don't
animated?
know. They
You
could have just
know?
done it in that own style, where it's
Yeah,
like
they
a
could have done a Broadway,
style.
yeah.
No one would have complained.
Honestly, if this movie didn't look the way it is, I would not see
We
it. But
probably
I
wouldn't,
feel
yeah.
like we have to see it because
Yeah,
of it.
we gotta see it
We have
just
to
because
see
it's getting too much buzz to not be a
Yeah,
part of
and
it.
also I mean, there's Idris Elba, who I love, and then you have also like Taylor Swift, and you have a bunch of other like really good actors and actresses, like Jennifer Hudson,
Yeah.
right? She's
But there's a
singing in
lot
that.
of conflict when it comes to Cats because apparently the main star of this this movie, she is black, and they made Jennifer Hudson and they made Jason Derulo
She's-
dark furred cats because to represent
Yeah.
their skin
she's
color.
the white,
They
the main
did.
white cat.
And everyone was kind of having backlash because they said her fur doesn't reflect her skin color, like they did with the other ones. And it's like, unfortunately, everything's a race war now.
Yeah,
Everything
it is.
has to be about that.
Of
But
course it is.
I mean, at the same time, people are upset because they said, you would never know that's as an actress, that's what she looks like. And if they are making every other cat look like,
And that's what I even called out too when I first saw that trailer. Like, not that I want to stay on this topic that long,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like I love Idris Elba. Like, I know Jennifer Hudson, and I know what's
Rebel
his name?
Wilson,
No. Yeah.
James Corden,
No, what's his name?
Jason Derulo.
Jason Derulo. I'm like, they made him look like that. Like, and
Yeah.
I had no idea the main character was whatever race or whatever she is. But that's interesting. I don't know
Yeah.
necessarily how I really feel about that.
I mean,
but-
my last thing for that movie is probably like, do you wonder if the actors and actresses like even saw what they were gonna look like in the movie beforehand?
Yeah, I
I
want to wonder that too, because when that trailer was first coming out, I remember sending it to, I think, Amanda or Mom, I'm not sure, and I remember seeing Idris Elba dancing. I was like, oh wow, they're gonna make a Cats movie. I'm like, that's cool. It's just gonna probably be like a Broadway play on the movie theater
On the big
screen.
screen.
Yeah. Whoa, was I wrong?
Yeah, was it bad?
Yeah, so like Cats, we're gonna have to see it just because, and who knows, and we may end up loving the music or whatever. It may actually end up looking good. It's also really early before the movie comes out, but I really doubt it. And then also we have a Joker. This is the next DC movie. This is a standalone Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix. I am looking forward to this so much. It looks like a Martin Scorsese film, like a gang film. It looks so cool. It has this really cool style to it. And I'm curious to see how they spin this Joker.
Yeah, like honestly, not even knowing like kind of just seeing the trailer. I don't remember what movie we were seeing at the time, but I didn't even know it was Joker. But I was already interested,
Yeah.
and like it
Yeah.
looked really
It's very
interesting.
dark.
And then just out of nowhere, the Joker, logo comes up. I'm just like, wow, like actually,
It's a cooler take on
Yeah.
what we've seen of the Joker as, Jared Leto, Heath Ledger. I mean, all of the earlier versions you have, Jack Nicholson, and you have all of those. So I think this is he looks like he could be the Joker in real life. More than any of the other ones, I truly believe. More than Heath Ledger, more than anyone, can argue that. But I definitely think he looks like that older, more run
Scrawny,
down,
like
straggly,
like if it's the real life version of a Joker, or
Yeah.
Joker the character.
And I like that it's more accurate in the fact that he's a person.
Yeah.
Like where the Joker is always like painted face and clown. Like this guy is actually demented. And they're showing that and how the Joker's going to come out through him. I think that's cool. Like he is the Joker. It's not that he puts on a mask and becomes a Joker.
And I think they were breaking that down to where I think I read on like Twitter where they're not following the comics 100% with this movie. And honestly, I don't care. I just want to see a different spin on a famous character.
Yeah.
You can make so many different Jokers, and it'll be whatever you want it to be. But I think just as a DC film too, with Shazam, like I said earlier, was one of my favorite movies so far this year. These movies have these really important and really good styles. Like I said, Shazam was basically big with the Tom Hanks movie with a Superman character, and it was so much fun, and I love it so much. I think I'm gonna watch it probably every Christmas. But it's so good, and just seeing Joker, I think they're just gonna keep doing these one-offs where they're just so good. And I really hope Joker is a hit because it looks really good.
Yeah, DC really needs that boost in their movies. They kind of had it with Aquaman. I didn't see Aquaman, but I heard
I still didn't see Aquaman.
I heard it got pretty decent reviews.
Well, you see, they had, they have good and then they have bad. They had, Wonder Woman, which was one of their best films ever.
Justice League,
and then they had Justice League. And then they also did Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Which now they have Birds of Prey coming out too, which is supposed to be pretty good, but I don't know how I feel about it personally. I haven't seen much about it. But I feel like Suicide Squad, when you're sitting there, you're enjoying it, and then you go to rewatch it, and you're like, this movie is bad. When you're sitting there and you're engulfed in, like, the first ever showing of something, you're always a little bit more encapsulated than if you were to sit at home and, like, really judge it, where you can get up and walk away. And that movie, you put it on now, and you're kind of like, this really isn't what I thought it was going to be.
This is not entertainment.
Yeah, and if everyone loved that Joker, there's no reason they're not going to love this Joker.
Yeah.
Really.
And no, disrespect to Jared Leto, but he was not the original.
It was like sticker shock. Everybody's like, this is not Joker. Everybody always expects Heath Ledger, unfortunately, which is a good and bad thing. So I think that this Joaquin Joker looks like he's a mix of like the Heath Ledger Joker and then his own thing. That's cool.
Fresh. It's new.
Yeah, so I think that's what's having me really excited. But also, I was saying to my friend before we move on to our last and final topic, it's I love that I'm losing my train of thought here.
You want what?
Talking about the Joker. Talking about your friend.
Oh my god.
It was that important.
No, it really was too.
Maybe it'll come back.
It'll come back to you.
But we can go to our final topic today, which, Nick, if you want to review that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just whatever we're really interested in this past week, or honestly, past month even, whatever we've really been interested in.
Our own interests.
Yeah, I've really been encapsulated in the anime Hunter x Hunter. It's about this boy who's searching for his father, and he has to go through, this, like, what they call, like, hunter training. It's almost like, kind of to be like a superhero type, thing, in its own world. It's really, really, like, entertaining. I would definitely recommend you give it a watch. It is, over 100 episodes or so, but...
You need a lot of dedication and time.
You do need dedication, but honestly, it is absolutely worth it for, the quality of animation and the quality of life the show has.
Wow.
So, it really...
That's high praise.
It's
Nick Cage would say.
It's
did anything come back to you over there, Brandon?
I'm really wishing it did.
All right, well, you keep thinking, because I got some stuff.
You go.
So, I mean, I'm always following, the updates of pop culture and following what's going on in the world. And right now, obviously, the biggest talks are the live-action remakes. So, we didn't talk about it, but we did see The Lion King. and we were very disappointed in The Lion King. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful movie. You're sitting there, you're watching, you're like, this is gorgeous. This is like I'm sitting in, Africa,
It's
the
like
desert.
you're watching a documentary.
It's beautiful. And then they open their mouths, and you just start laughing. And you know what? If we weren't so curious about the movie, we honestly would have gotten up and walked out of the theater. It was bad. And you know what? The worst part about the movie is, it's not a spoiler, obviously. If you haven't seen The Lion King at this point in your life, something's wrong with you. But Mufasa dies, okay? And it's supposed to be a sad scene. You're supposed to shed a tear. That's the father of the baby lion cub. And in this movie, when he dies, you laugh. You laugh because it's so bad. Because little Simba's like, no! And it's this little tiny kitten, and you see his little mouth just open and, like, hiss. Like, it's
and
not...
there's no emotion either.
There's nothing. There's nothing good there. And on top of, live action, which is where I'm heading, is, they're talking about The Little Mermaid and how, that Halle Bailey, I think her
Halle
name
Berry?
is. No. It's not Halle Berry. It's like Halle Bailey.
Oh.
No, did you think that's who it was?
Maybe.
No, it's Chloe and Halle, these two singers. I think they were on The Voice. Something and Halle got casted. So at least she can really sing, which is a relief, because sometimes they put these people in who cannot sing and they just fabricate it. Mm-hmm. And the world's having another race war about what she looks like and who they're going to put in. And Melissa McCarthy is rumored to be Ursula, and everyone's
that's a good casting.
But everyone's upset about it. They think that Queen Latifah should be Ursula, and now they're making a live TV movie of The Little Mermaid, which they released today, and Queen Latifah is actually going to be in that one.
What?
So that's interesting.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
Why release that so close?
To kind of bring people in.
They've
I don't
done
know.
That before. Though,
they did it with
something.
Grace.
That's what I'm thinking.
But
didn't they do it with Footloose too?
I don't think so.
Or Hairspray? They had
They might have done Hairspray. I don't know. I don't remember. But, on top of that, we're also talking about Mulan. Mulan, we're all excited about it. And, they said they wanted to replace, what's the name, Mushu?
Mushu,
yeah.
With a phoenix. And, they said it's an adaptation of the movie. It's not the original following, so at least I can have a little more respect for that. They're not saying it's word for word what you're going to get with Mulan.
The Lion King
which is what they originally had told us, though. When you name your movie Mulan, you're sitting there like, oh, I can't wait to see this character and this and this and that.
You're expecting the characters you love just to see in live action.
But I think Disney needs to take a break on the live actions, because The Lion King was really rough. It was really rough.
Something's going to tell me that Mulan isn't going to be very good, because a lot of times when movies make an adaptation of something original...
Or it's going to be amazing.
But... I don't know. You take things out and then you make things different, and people then just don't like it.
Well, to back up what Amanda was saying about Lion King, and she said a lot of accurate stuff, but you do need to realize when you go into the Lion King remake, it's not like when you're going to see Sleeping Beauty or Aladdin, where they do change, or Beauty and the Beast, where they do change a little bit. Lion King, within the first 3 frames of the movie that it is a carbon copy. It's just real life. And
but there was no transition. It was literally, and now you're going to watch this scene, and now you're going to watch them at Pride Rock. But they took away, it wasn't scene for scene, though, because they took away Rafiki doing all of his stuff that he would normally do. They took out too much, and they added in Beyonce's song. And you're like, this song was so unnecessary. And the Be Prepared from Scar was not even accentuated enough. It was there. So at least you can't complain about it not being there.
After being complained about.
Right. But it's like, why put in Beyonce just because it's Beyonce? No one cares.
But also, the biggest problem with Lion King is, yes, it's live action, but they're still using cartoon frame shots. So that's where Amanda was saying she was laughing, because we all were. When Mufasa dies, it's the famous shot of Simba shouting for his dad. And when you watch that in the cartoon, it is this gut-wrenching scene. You're like, you're watching your father die off the cliff. Yeah, and you feel it. And what I can say is, if you haven't seen The Lion King, but you're planning on going to see this live-action CGI, whatever you want to call it, it is a movie that strips all of the charm and emotion and all those feelings
until
away.
Timon and Pumbaa come out.
Yeah.
That saves you.
And then it comes up a bit, and then it just drops
dips.
again.
They even ruined, their iconic scene of them, distracting the hyenas when they go back to Pride Rock.
And that's a whole nother thing, but I think that's kind of a spoiler if we go into it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's just unfortunate because it's like, you have such high hopes for this. You know going in it's not going to be the cartoons where they have the facial expressions, where they can move their eyebrows, where they can cry. It's an animal. If you have a cat as a pet, you know that they're not as reactive as they are dogs, so you're not going to have this, array of facial expressions, or even, their demeanor is going to be different. So in this movie, it's just cold. Like, everything seemed very cold.
And also when they're singing their songs, everybody's like, well, the songs will get me through all this stuff, and you're just sitting there like, yeah, probably, but I Just Can't Wait to Be King is one of my favorite Disney songs, if not my favorite Disney song, and I just remember the fanfare and parade of Simba running around the watering hole in the cartoon, and they're building the structure of animals, and they're all dancing and singing. And then in this live action one, they can't do that because it's IRL. It's in real life. So they're running simply around the water hole, and then they have all of the animals running with them.
It's pretty bland.
It feels so not heartless, because you're like, oh cool, look at the little animals running with each other, but it's just not. It's not the Lion King.
Yeah. But even in Can You Feel the Love Tonight, he didn't throw Nala in the water like he did in the original, and that's not a spoiler.
And it was during the day.
Yeah, and it was during the day, and so it was trash.
It was just kind of like, look and see what we can do with CGI now, and then that was it.
You watch it once, and
wait till it goes on Netflix. Don't waste your money.
Yeah.
And then I guess
did your thought come back to you?
No, maybe next week.
Yeah, we'll bring it back to you next week.
But my final thing is I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem: The Three Houses. This game came out the last day of July, so that was maybe a week or two ago. It's amazing. It's so good. Nintendo keeps doing wonders with Fire Emblem, and I love bonding with these fictional characters. It's a series that is very near and dear to me. So seeing Fire Emblem come back on the Switch in full force and better than ever, it's really awesome. I totally recommend it. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, well, this marks the end of our first ever episode of the Trio Pop Podcast.
Woo!
We hope you enjoyed listening to us this week, and we want you to tune in next week, and we're going to be talking about the next movie on our list, which is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And before we leave, we just want you to know that we do have an Instagram. It is Trio Pop. Check us out on there and let us know what you thought. Comment on our Hobbs and Shaw poster, or even send us a private message just to let us know what you thought of it.
Or in the comments below on YouTube too, because this is where it's going to be posted.
Yeah, that's going to be up on YouTube. And thanks again for listening, and we hope to speak with you next time.
Yeah, we shall talk to you guys
about a scary movie that I really am kind of afraid to watch.
But I'm excited for it.
Can't wait.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Catch you later.